Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue Podcast Q&A. This podcast is sponsored by NordVPN and I'm your host Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley. John, it's been a while, I think 12 days since the last time you and I did a podcast on a StreamYard like this when we spoke about PSG and how excited we were to look ahead to that. That's got 8,000 views, by the way. I checked it before we came on. There's a lot of PSG fans in the comments saying like, oh, you two think you can beat us? No chance. So looking forward to that one in a couple of weeks. How's things, John?
Yeah, I'm all good. I've had a week off, which has been lovely. I always take the week off for the international break because it's a terrible time, isn't it? The international break, it really is. I needed it. I say I needed it. Goodness me. But it's a lot of games, a lot of traveling, all that sort of stuff. So it was the right time to take a little bit of a break. But I'm really looking forward now to the month of April. Obviously, then you've got May, and we'll have a cup final in the FA Cup and all that stuff to look forward to. Hopefully,
just a quick plug for some of the other stuff that we've done since you and I last got together. The Villa Social returned with a Villa Draft 11. Matt Kendrick and I opened a mystery box of Aston Villa memorabilia. We took a look through Villa's expiring contracts. There's 11 players whose contracts expire over the next 3 summers, so we went through all of those. And Ashley Priest joined us at Podymore Heath HQ to reflect on reporting on Villa during COVID, which was 5 years ago this weekend just gone that the country went into lockdown. So if you missed any of those over the previous days, you can catch those on the channel on YouTube or the Spotify or Apple Podcast feed. We are here today to do the Q&A. Obviously, Villa haven't played since the last time we did one of these, so hopefully some of the questions are creative because I've already got them in front of me. We're going to start with one that's totally random based off the picture that I used when I tweeted out, let's have some questions, please. I took a photograph outside the Trinity on the last game that we went to of a blue plaque, and that sparked a question from Jonathan, who said, why does that plaque say a founder rather than the founder? And why don't we make more of the fact that we are the club that gave league football to the world? I quite like this. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but it's probably right, isn't it? It probably should say the founder. I don't know who commissions these plaques, whether it's a government thing or a council thing or something like that. But there were 12 clubs that were part of that first league. So I think in terms of fairness, it's just easy to say they were all a founder. But Villa were, and William McGregor was the kind of originator of the league system. So Villa should be the founder.
I think the plaque, and I don't, you just say there who's given the plaques to different. Firstly, Jonathan. By the way, Jonathan kept me company for about an hour in Leipzig.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
Going to Leipzig. So he's a big fan of the podcast. So cheers, Jonathan. Hope to see you in Paris, maybe. Anyway, nice, the plaques that were kind of commissioned, I suppose, I presume they're from the Football League, and they've given them to the club.
So I don't know, because those blue plaques are a thing elsewhere. Like there's one not far from me in Kidderminster of like, this was the house of the person who was the first person who made carpets or something. Like the blue plaques, like a thing on historical sites, like William Shakespeare's house will have a blue plaque, that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Are they the same ones that I just presumed they were plaques because they're plaques? Like I didn't think that.
I'm sure the circular blue plaque is a thing. I'm going to Google this while we do this.
Jonathan's absolutely right. We should be shouting from the rooftops about our, not just our kind of successes, like obviously 1982 and all everything else that we've won in the past. But this is a massive thing because it's something that we need to do more of, I suppose. Kind of shout up our own, not just success, but what we've given to the game. We obviously have the statue. That's as far as it goes. And I think most people who aren't Villa fans, if you were walking past that on your way to hospitality or something, because that's the entrance there, you would look at it and think, oh, who's that? Why is that there? But you would know nothing more. Whereas we should be, shouting from the rooftops. Maybe even have it on Villa Park, like the creators of the Football League. Like no one else has done that. And this is the biggest league in the world, the biggest sports league in the world as well, because football is the biggest sport globally for sure. And then we have the best league. And who made that? I mean, we didn't make the Premier League. Sky Sports probably did, but we were the founders of that, that concept, right? So definitely agree with Jonathan. We should be shouting more about our history because it's more than just, winning football matches and winning a few titles kind of back in the day. We have an incredible 150-year history and there's much more to it. So even especially in this year, 150-year anniversary, haven't heard too much about it.
Jonathan, thanks for the question. Let's move on to different things. Dave asks, and there's 2 here, but I don't have a name for the second one because I copied it from somewhere. Dave says, if we have to sell again due to PSR, who do you guys think would be the one to bring in the most money, but not leave us in a worse position going forward? And then
Straight
mystery commenter said, yeah, I know. Mystery commenter said, why are we still talking about PSR? We have tripled our revenue this season, apparently, so surely that fixes that. And this is quite a common thing that I've seen. Like, lads, why are you talking about PSR for? Why are you talking about needing to sell X player? But PSR never truly goes away, does it?
For the last season, what was the losses 80 something million?
80 million, I think.
It's 80 million. The UEFA financial landscape report, I think that's how you say it, came out recently. Villa themselves haven't actually made it public. I don't think they haven't. At least they haven't put out a statement or anything like they usually do every year. So I presume that will be around the corner. But the UEFA financial report wasn't as bad as the previous one, where Villa had the most losses in Europe this season. I think, was it Chelsea or Juventus? Can't quite remember. But still, I think it was the fourth highest loss. Our revenue has obviously increased, which is good. And for this season, obviously, you've got Champions League too. So, I mean, we all know the Champions League helps, and that ticket sales have been outrageous, but that helps. Villa have made it was £75 million from Champions League before the knockouts, so I think you can probably push that towards like £100 million ish after the PSG game, something around there. So we've obviously made a lot of money from that. What I'm trying to say is the future will look a bit brighter, but you've still got to get to the huge revenues that Chris X targeting. I know the kind of the question straight off the bat of that is, well, who are we selling then, and what is the I don't really. I'm not scared about that. Like, genuinely, I'm just not. Like, we've already seen how we've been impacted by the sale of players, big players, Louise and Duran. And where are we? Like, quarterfinal of an FA Cup, Champions League quarterfinal, nearly top 5 in the Premier League. I'm not saying we're going to get there, but we're in that conversation with a month.
We're back, everybody. We're back.
We are so back. Like, 2 was the campaign, and we've had to do all of that. Like, other clubs have suffered more than us in terms of not selling players. We've had to sell lots, but it hasn't made a massive difference to the team. If you're talking Kamara, that's a lot harder to replace. Martinez has probably had his worst Villa season this season, I'd probably say, which is crazy because he's still made some incredible saves. Harry Kane, the Forest save, all of those things. But in terms of consistency, I think there's a few matches where he hasn't been anywhere near his best, which is best in the world standard. So it's still been incredibly good. So even losing him would be a big blow. And I'm not saying anything that's not saying those 2 players are going to leave, by the way. I'm just painting a picture of if those players were leaving, I think that would be a much harder position to replace. But I look across the team and I think we can replace that player, and I trust the board to do that. And Emery's kind of talent ID as such to replace it too. So I'm not particularly worried. Every player is for sale. And then that's the way it is. If someone slaps 100-something million on Morgan Rogers, he goes. Because that's the game. Villa need money. They don't want to sell their best players, but they know that, how do I put it, that sort of money for any player, like, if you're paying over the odds for someone, that has to be a consideration. No one wanted to sell Duran, but for that money, they thought, okay, well, we can do this, this, and this. That's exactly the same thought that will happen if someone puts X amount of money on Watkins, Rogers, other players as well. So, every player for pretty much any club, to be honest, is for sale, especially in the era of PSR.
Anyway, let's move on. To stick with the negative for Mr. S. Classic Mings mistake to concede in the friendly the other night. Bloody hell. Yet the eye test suggests we are stronger defensively since he's been back in the team. Is this difference worth the odd calamity, or does Pau Torres come straight back in now he has 90 minutes in his legs? I feel like we've done this kind of conversation to death to an extent, Mr. S. It depends on the opposition, doesn't it? I think
that's probably the best answer, but I will back Mings up a bit more here because, and I know Mr. S says the eye test, but actually what we're seeing is true though. We are defensively better.
Yeah.
With Mings. I do have a few stats to hand, or one stat anyway. So after the Brighton game, when Torres came off injured with a broken metatarsal. So the 12 games that Mings has played after that, all 12, we've conceded 2 or more goals in only 2 of those games. Whereas if you remember previously,
that was the thing, wasn't it?
We were conceding 2 or more goals a lot. And when Kamara was out of the team, it was like half the matches that he didn't play. So while you can make the argument, Kamara's back, so maybe that helps too. Well, the case there is that Mings, in the 12 games he's played, we've only conceded more than once on 2 occasions. Don't get me wrong, there's probably 3, maybe 4 clean sheets in that run. But if we're going to concede 1 goal a game for the rest of the season, I think a lot of fans would take that. Would you take that?
That sounds pretty reasonable, because in most games, I think Villa will score. Well, in almost every game, I feel like we're going to score. So that puts us to not lose a game. I feel like in most games, we're going to score more than one. So that means just winning quite a few games as well. So, I would take that.
Don't get me wrong. Our goal scoring record isn't great. In fact, it's probably poor considering the levels that we wanted. Yeah, and in the league, I don't know this off the top of my head, but we're definitely one of the lower scorers in the top half of the table.
Yeah.
But in terms of the talent we have and what they can produce, they can definitely score 2 goals a game in every match for the rest of the season, really. We've got some difficult games, of course, but we definitely can. Whether we do is another thing. But with Minks in the team, we don't concede that many goals. And as I say, the stats, 2 or more in only 2 out of 12. That's a pretty strong record considering what we were looking at previously. So Mings for me is our best kind of box defender. Gets blocks in, headers. He defends his box very well.
Okay, right. Let's move on from Ricardo, who says, we spoke a little bit about the succession planning for Watkins, so we'll do 2 in 1 here. Ricardo, first of all, says, Villa are in a cup final and Ollie Watkins isn't fit, so who starts up front? Rashford, Marlon, or somebody else? And Hard Spacer says, is it time to start succession planning for Watkins? Would we sell in the summer for a decent price and get a younger, established striker in, or do we take the risk in developing a prospect in behind Watkins with no guarantee that they can fill the void when the time comes? It probably is just about getting to that territory of kind of a bit like Spurs with Kane. What happens after this player leaves? You could argue the same case for not just yet, but for Martinez as well at the other end of the pitch. Like, what happens after Martinez retires at Villa or goes to X club in whatever window? That's a scary thought to me, more so than Watkins actually. But let's stick with Watkins for now. We'll do the first one first of all. If he's not fit in a cup final, it would be Rashford, I think, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think you have to look at better players in behind him.
Yeah, because then you'd have Ramsey and you'd have Rodgers and you'd have on the right someone else, maybe a Marlon.
Potentially,
yeah. I mean, it depends if we're talking about the Champions League final, because then that takes Marlon out. So I don't know. To be honest, my first instinct was to play Marlon down the middle. It's just difficult to say because we haven't seen much of him. And then
I think he probably is the backup striker now, more so than Rashford, and you'd have Marlon in front and Rashford off the left. But I do like the idea of Ramsey, Rodgers, and maybe McGinn behind Rashford.
Yeah. I think if you look at it, if you're talking about number 9s, who do you want a chance to fall to? I mean, that's a different question altogether, really. But I think you have to look at it as, well, how does that impact the other positions? And you would probably want to have Ramsey and Rashford on the same team with Rodgers there as well. So you'd probably say Rashford, but I do think Marlon, like, I'm not going to discredit him just because he missed a penalty for Holland last night. Don't give him a penalty. You know what, though? I was watching it and I was thinking, like, you just know, this is before the penalty shootout even started, and you just know the penalty's going to fall to Marlon, he's going to miss, not because it's a bad play, but because nothing's going his way since joining Villa. Like, nothing has, which is a real shame because it's not as if he's playing badly. Like, he scored against Wolves and it was offside when it wasn't offside. Rodgers pushed or didn't push. Rodgers nudged the player and then called by VAR. That would have been an equaliser, no goal. The Liverpool match where he pulls it just wide. Like, he could have had real moments and he hasn't quite had it. Yeah. And the Champions League setback. But has it actually set him back? I don't know. Because then he's been injured and ill. So, like, I'm sure he's frustrated about it incredibly. But I don't actually think he's been, like, out of form. Do you know what I mean? He's just been unlucky. Probably going to be my first question to Emery for the first press conference back, or one of them anyway. Like, talk to me about Marlon, because, it's something that I wanted to speak about previously, but there's other things to talk about. But yeah, to answer the question, you'd probably say Rashford, but I prefer him off the left anyway, or even coming off the bench. So
I do, yeah.
I'll just for difference, I'll say Marlon.
Okay, all right, we'll open that up to the comments. I mean, the Ricardo said, or someone else. I don't know who that someone else could be.
It would be
Rodgers as a false 9 potentially.
Yeah,
but that would be the least preferred option.
Yeah, Emery loves the
doesn't he?
versatility. Yeah, he loves the versatility of Rodgers and McGinn as well. But Rodgers can play in about he plays sometimes in 4 or 5 different positions in every game. We just don't quite
Yeah.
realise it. Like the Brentford match, he went right, left, 10, striker, all sorts. So, yeah. And then just on the second part of that question, I think it'd be negligent to not plan for Watkins' departure
Agreed, yeah.
or other players' departure as well. Like we can't
Every
be
player, yeah.
exactly like, again, as we said from the top, every player's for sale. You know, that's just how it is. Watkins could go in the summer, hopefully, hopefully not. But if he does, then having broken the goal scoring record in the Premier League era, that is. And we go from there. I mean, there's going to be options that we could pursue. So who knows? And we don't know what Watkins will want either. You know, if Arsenal come calling again, maybe that's a situation he looks at and thinks, well, I've probably done everything that I've come to do at Villa. I've won an FA Cup. I've broken the goal scoring record. Maybe it's time for a new challenge for me. This is probably my peak value. If it works the other way and he doesn't break the goal scoring record and we don't win a trophy, maybe he'll think, you know what, I've still got unfinished business here. I want to stay into the season to do these things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everything is on the table basically. So in April, we're not in April, just in the end of March, nearly, we can't be kind of ruling anything out. Essentially.
No, I think a podcast about Villa's business and strategy towards transfers and stuff is a whole thing we can do in itself in the last weeks of the season, or once the season is over and before the window kind of kicks into silly season. Just like what are the parameters? What does it look like for Villa to now be in this competition or that competition? What does it mean for our business and stuff? We could do a full hour about that, and we've got lots of questions, and we're going to move on. Something slightly different. Again, I'm going to do 2 and 1 here from Rooster and James. We'll start with Rooster just because it's a funny name. As the government have said that they'll provide taxpayers money to regenerate the area around the new Man United stadium, do you think that means we could get them to provide funds to finally revamp Whitton Railway Station and some of the areas around Villa Park, thus enabling us to go ahead with the North Stand redevelopment? James says, is it possible for the club to purchase homes in the surrounding area of Villa Park using a compulsory purchase order (brackets CPO) and offer to rehome those residents by building affordable housing elsewhere, using the land in the surrounding areas to expand Villa Park and improve accessibility? Whew, this is pretty loaded, I think. I don't like the sound of compulsory purchase orders and rehoming the residents around Villa Park just so we can build a nicer stadium. I don't like that. That might be the cruel, harsh reality of doing business at this level, and it's something that needs to be done. But to me, I don't like that.
You've just thrown away. You literally thrown away a community there, haven't you? Like you just, it doesn't sit right with me that.
No, not at all. Let's move on to the second part of that, the government funded thing for Man United, which again is a whole kind of can of worms I don't really want to get into because I don't know the details around the Man United new stadium really.
I like the stadium, what it looks like.
Yeah, crap in it. I think without going into the details, I've not seen enough of it, whether that's government funded or whether it's like the Manchester Area Council funded. We know that the Birmingham City Council is bankrupt or whatever. I remember the story last year about them basically having no money. So that is why there's no funding for Villa. If it's coming directly from Birmingham, if it's a higher government level, is that different? I don't know. I get the frustration. If Man United can get a new £2 billion pound stadium built for them, but we can't even get a train station reconfigured and painted and bought into 2025, how is that fair? I think the crux of it is that it isn't fair.
Yeah, well, as you say, like it's kind of come to a standstill, all these sort of plans, and dare I say it, and I don't know if it's even like a realistic thing for them across the road, but they want to build like a tunnel or something to get to the stadium. Don't know if you've seen that. This is going to cost like billions of pounds. I don't know where they think that money's coming from or how it's going to, So basically, what I'm trying to say is we have plans. Birmingham have plans, however kind of high in the sky they are, about having more than 12 fans in a stadium. It's 60,000 or so. I'm not sure. I don't know where it's going, but they have their plans. They still are going to ask for money from government or whatever. And if we don't have that to spend, then nothing's going to improve here. We've done lots of podcasts on Villa Park redevelopment and all sorts, and it does feel like a real frustration because it also feels like the fans. I mean, we're more than 42 now, but I mean, obviously you've got away fans. But the fans who go to the games, it feels like they're picking up the money that Villa would have made. How do I put it? Like ticket prices are probably more,
Yeah.
because there's less fans in the stadium, all that sort of stuff. So we're feeling the squeeze of it as well.
Okay, let's move on then. Just turn the pace up a little bit and do something completely different from John. If you could pick one player from every one of the 8 teams that are currently above Villa in the Premier League to bring into this Villa squad in the summer, which 8 players would you choose and why? So those 8 teams from top to where Villa are Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Chelsea, Man City, Newcastle, Brighton and Fulham. Have you
I
given
love
this
these
thought,
questions.
John?
Yeah, I've got a list. I'm
I
ready.
feel like we could do this as a whole episode in itself, to be honest. I'm going to say the team name. You're going to say your player. I'm going to say my player, and then we'll discuss. Okay?
All right, not for long, but yeah.
No. Yeah, we don't have time for that. Liverpool.
Oh, I've got 2 though. Just quickly. All right, so I got Van Dijk because I just don't know when he's not going to be good, even though he's like 33 or 34 now. And the other one, I don't think it's very realistic at all. I say at all.
Well, none
I
of
don't think
these
it's
are
that realistic.
Come on.
No. This is a more no. 'Cause I can't say Simicast because I don't think it's that good. But I said Jota, probably not.
I've put Salah. Obviously. Come on.
Nah, no. You know what? I'd rather have Van Dijk than Salah.
Arsenal.
I said I love Declan Rice, so I've said Declan Rice.
I was torn between him, but I've gone Saliba. I have now started to think we need a defender, so Saliba goes into my team.
Sure, Saliba loves that.
Forest.
Gibbs White, massive fan of Gibbs White.
Yeah, me too.
What a player.
Yeah. Chelsea.
Palmer's their best player. I do like Caicedo, but I went realistic on this one because I do like this player. Ooh, like it. Have we got the same one? What position?
Mine is Axel Disasi.
Oh yeah, of course.
Why not? That's a genuine this list. This is a genuine one that could happen.
Yeah, I'm rusty. I've been out of work for a week. I forgot we had him. I said Madueke. I quite like Madueke.
Okay, yeah, not bad.
I just think he's a good player. Like, I think it's again one of those players. A good plays for a club that has more. I don't know about. I think expectation at Villa's massive, but expectation in terms of you need to be competing for a league title, and you're kind of judged against Hazard and I don't know, Robin, the players that they've had that have been good for them on the right wing. But actually, I think Madueke is a very good player, and not just saying that because he scored at Villa Park in that tour last season, but I've always thought he was a decent player. I think Villa looked at him when he was at PSV as well, so obviously on the right wing as well. I do think we need something a bit more. Don't know if he'd take the level up of the team massively, but I just like him. He's a good player.
Well, that's why I've got Salah out there on my team. Man City.
Rodri is obvious, but again, he's obviously not coming to Villa now. But I really like Marmoush. Yeah,
I've gone Rodri.
Okay, fair enough.
Obviously, I've just picked the best player in each club.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I thought you would, so I've given a second option basically for each one.
Which is, I'm glad you have. Because for Newcastle, I've got Isak.
Yeah. To be fair, so did I. Their midfield, by the way, when I watched them at St James's, obviously with Villa, the press box is quite low down compared to the away fans, which is well up in the gods. And you could really have an appreciation of how good Tonali is. Like, he is, wow. Like, there's very few players that I've seen Morgan Rogers not beat. Tonali was one of them. The other player who also competed well against Morgan Rogers was Baleba from Brighton, who is my pick from the Seagulls.
Oh, you're moving on. Oh, thanks, John. Yeah. Thanks for taking over hosting duties and moving over. I've gone Mitoma. Pretty obvious. Gives us an option out wide.
Yeah, Baleba for me. Oh my God. Like, I love a midfielder. I just, wow. Like, he's got everything, this guy.
Fulham is a maybe slightly different one, that they're not kind of packed with stars that I think would massively improve Villa, because obviously I think Villa are better than Fulham. It's just that they're above us in the table at the moment. Who did you go for these?
Possibly the best left back in the division, Anthony Robinson.
I went the same, yeah.
Yeah,
he'll end up with Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, that's the chat. I think he was born in Liverpool. Yeah, him, Kirke has done very well this season as well. But Robinson, he's very athletic, very quick. Interesting running style. He runs like with his shoulders back, and not that that means anything. But very, very athletic player, and clearly good defensively and in the final third as well. So it's a good list, that.
Let's move on now to Andy, who says, how would you prioritise our 3 ongoing competitions right now? I feel like we probably have answered this a little bit, but as time goes on and Villa progress into these competitions even further, perhaps answers change. Emery always says that the Premier League is kind of the bread and butter, which he doesn't say because I don't know if he even knows that phrase, but that's the point he's making, that that's our meat and potatoes.
First objective.
Our first objective, that's more like it, isn't it?
How it is, yeah.
I think now it probably is FA Cup.
I don't like the phrase priority because it's like, well, when we play PSG, what are we going to do? Have an eye on the FA Cup? Like, no, we're going to. I think if anything, the league is going to suffer because we're maybe looking elsewhere because there's two competitions. We know what we like before, well, certainly after the Champions League games. I know Brentford kind of ended that run of poor form. So we'll see how it reacts. I think we play Newcastle after the second leg, Forest before the first leg, Southampton in the middle. I think that's the way it goes. But then the Newcastle game would then be before a semi-final FA Cup if we beat Preston. So there's real reason to think that, well, we might not be 100% at the league because we know that we don't have to finish where we want to finish in the league to get what for Champions League, I think we're more likely to finish in fifth and win the Champions League, I'd say. I think most people would settle for Europa League at this stage, knowing that it's been a difficult season. There's a lot of traffic. We've had difficulties, whatever, kind of growing pains in a way of building this new team. The FA Cup is 2 matches. 3 matches, 2 matches. If you beat Preston, both at Wembley, neutral territory, we can beat any team at Wembley that's left in this competition. That is an easier route, I think, than playing the amount of games we have left, and we all difficult games as well. So talking about Europe, but that's in Emery's kind of vision of it also gets Europe. It's silverware, and that's all that matters to me. Even if you didn't get Europa League, at the end of it, I'd still be saying go for the FA Cup. I know Europe is incredibly important, but the silverware is the most
interesting.
Yeah, would you? Yeah, I would. I think it's time that we just break this spell.
Let's do ticket stuff for Dave. I think we can probably get through this quite quickly because we don't have an answer at the moment. We can look into it. Dave says, can you discuss the ticket office and the loss of so many away tickets from an already small allocation? This is for PSG, obviously. A small allocation meaning fans who had been to Champions League away games had no chance of ever getting the PSG tickets. Is this the price of success? But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that at all. That all of a sudden tickets are, there seems to be more for hospitality or whatever. I've seen a little bit of this, and don't know how much of it you've seen as you were off, but obviously you're a Villa fan, so you know what's going on. Few tickets are available for PSG, and then they go pretty quickly, and then it's all a little bit like what's going on here. Do you want to just explain for those that maybe aren't aware what the controversy in quotation marks is and what you're doing to look into it?
So firstly, I'm putting this to the club because kind of the accusation, as it were, is that of a 2,000 allocation for PSG away tickets, and they've sold out very quickly, and quite a lot of people, and I've been looking into it myself. I need to kind of finish that now. Would suggest that there's more tickets that have been used elsewhere than for fans who have 3+ games or whatever. I know there's quite a lot of fans who have 3+ games, and they didn't get tickets when they probably should have based on the numbers. But again, I'm putting it to Villa, so I'm not going to make an accusation that anything's kind of dodgy here. I'm asking them where have those tickets gone, basically. But the first sales window was 1,000 tickets because it was 5 games, so all of the games. Lowest allocation was Monaco at 1,000, so that's 1,000 people. A few people said that there was only like 500, 600 tickets left after that, which would obviously be nowhere near enough of the kind of general admission of the 2,000 allocation. So again, I'm putting it to the club, and let's see what they say.
There's no point us speculating or guessing about what might have happened or might not have happened and throwing shit basically at anybody because we don't know. And the wisest decision as you for a journalist is to go and try and find out an actual answer rather than guessing.
Yeah, it makes sense to me that why people are angry. I think it makes sense that that probably maybe has happened. But again, I don't know that for sure, so I'm not going to bash it yet. If the club come back and tell us what's happened and we don't like it and we think it's wrong, we'll say it's wrong.
Let's move on. I didn't get a name for this one either. I copied some questions from different sources, and I forgot to get their names. So apologies. You'll know who you are if you ask this. If you could watch one Villa match again and experience it entirely fresh, as in not knowing the outcome beforehand, what game would you pick and why?
Great question.
I've got two. I think they're quite boring.
I have about 12.
Okay.
I'm just going to rattle through. Firstly, my memory of games I mean, obviously, 1982 in Rotterdam, that
Yeah.
would be the one that I'd go. But I've tried to avoid the obvious.
Not knowing the outcome, obviously, I'll pick Bayern Munich as one. Obviously, I know now that
Yeah.
we've won, but at the time, I didn't expect us to.
But you want to relive that,
If
yeah.
it plays out again in the same way that we win 1-0, like I want to feel that again, the first Champions League game. And then, again, a very boring answer, and one that I use for a lot of these kind of questions, playoff final.
And the feeling of going back up, I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
it because I've never felt us lifting an FA Cup or a League Cup or whatever. But I imagine they're very different.
Well, yeah, because that's like consequences for the next season as well. Like you're going to be in a different league and stuff.
It was like pure relief and like elation of like, oh my God, like I didn't think this day would happen when we were back in the Premier League. But it felt like, especially after the year that just happened.
The misery of the year before as well.
Such a slog. And also, what happens if you didn't win it?
Yeah.
You've got another horrible championship season to come. Whereas a cup final, I think, would be horrible, but also different. Like just different. Anyway, I'll talk about mine. I've kind of avoided the obvious ones, so I'm hitting you with 6-1 Sunderland and 12-13. Like I remember it vaguely, but like that was great. 3-1. By the way, this could be a really good podcast because I was going through some results and I was thinking, I remember that. That was great.
Is this like the equivalent of just like guys just sitting around naming old players, but here's some results?
Yeah, like pick a result out of the hat and just talk about it. Tony Moon, Antonio Luna. 3-1 against Arsenal on the opening day of 13-14. That was brilliant.
Why don't you give me a little clue? Like you just said then Tony Moon, and I'll try and guess the game.
I don't know if you get this. Hepburn Murphy.
What a rogue shout to give me as the first clue one. No, I don't know what the game is.
This is why I love it. All right, Sunderland 4-0. He made his debut, I think. So again, it's just one of those games where I'm looking back and
two games against Sunderland here in your first clue.
I know. But it's just one of those where, like, I could say cup final, but you just remember it and you're like, oh, that was great. We won 4-0. Like, I was really happy about it. And then not too long after that, beating Spurs away 1-0, Benteke header, when we had Sherwood in charge.
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I remember that.
That was a massive result to stay up. 2-1 win over Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
I'll try and be a bit quicker now. These are really random. 4-2 Hillsborough. I think it was 17-18.
I don't know.
Actually, we did. Was it 3-1 the following season?
Ooh, yes, I'm thinking about the wrong one.
But both of them. Then I hit you with 2 home games against Wolves. 4-1. Bjarnason. Iceman Cunner. 5-0 against Bristol City.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the one when Lee Johnson was moaning about the way the away fans were?
Maybe.
Oh, they got 2 home ends. It's like, no, this is Villa Park, mate.
Yeah. Snodgrass, last minute winner at Bramall Lane.
Yeah.
This is cinema. And then I'm going to last season, finally. 2-0 against Arsenal away. Yeah. Brilliant. And almost the one that kind of caps all of it. And it's completely bizarre, which sort of sums up my list. But there's nothing better than a away win, especially when lots happens. And 3-2 at Luton. Just brilliant.
Yeah.
Like,
last minute goals.
There's nothing more than I want than to see us to go away from home and slug out a win somehow. And it's a late goal. And it's just that's all I need. We can't forget those moments. Snodgrass at Bramall Lane. You know, that's not as good as Bayern Munich. But in that moment, it felt the same.
That was our Bayern Munich of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Penultimate question now. We have got a few more, but we're going to skip through because I need to finish in a second.
Yeah,
something very different to what we've just been talking about. From Stephen, after losing 4-0 to Man United, what is your opinion on the women's team and their sudden and drastic downturn? There's a very real possibility of getting relegated this season, and I'm not sure where the blame lies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't cover Villa women anywhere near as closely as what I cover the men's team, because that's enough for one person. But yeah, it's not great. And the new manager, Natalie Arroyo, she's basically said, like, yeah, I'm scared of being relegated as well.
Yeah, it's not a great look.
No, she came in, I think it was in January, to kind of install some belief in the players again after the first appointment didn't go well. And the interim manager was doing well, got a few wins to boost that. But then, yeah, it just hasn't worked so far. And they're only 1 point out of relegation now. I think Crystal Palace, they beat Villa 1-0 a few weeks ago, and Palace have some decent fixtures. Villa, I think 2 of their last 5 are at home against Brighton and is it Arsenal? So 2 teams are in the top 5 or top 6. Yeah. So that's going to be hard to win games. So it looks a bit bleak. I don't think anyone expected this to happen as well. That's the kind of shock of it. So it's like, with a few games left this season, we're quite perilously close to the drop now. So yeah, not good at all. The players are good enough to stay in the division for sure. You've got some players who used to play for England in that team, so there's experience there. So it's all a bit worrying. Palace, their fixtures are better than Villa's. I think they play the likes of Everton and is it Leicester, who are quite close to the drop as well. So there's chances for them to win games. And yeah, Villa are going to have to win a few of their remaining matches, but based on the evidence, it's, where is the next win coming from essentially? So yeah, I don't watch them closely in terms of what formations they play and how they're set up under the new manager, Arroyo. But yeah, definitely worrying.
All right, final one then to end this Q&A comes from Nicole. Now, give a bit of backstory to this one for those who maybe didn't listen to last week's Q&A. Did you, by the way? Me and Matt Kendrick in the office?
I did, yeah.
Okay, good. Well,
I hope this isn't like, what colour shirt was he wearing or something?
No, well, if it was like the episode that we did with Ash, we all wore green by complete coincidence. So last week, for those that didn't listen, Matt Kendrick referenced a compilation video, actually, like you did, and how he enjoyed the music on it. And he started whistling that tune, and then the outro for the episode was him whistling. So Nicole says, to keep on that theme of how much you want to win, Villa win the FA Cup this year, but once every hour for the rest of your working life, you have to listen to Matt Kendrick whistle that little tune from last week's episode. His whistling can stop every time Birmingham City make it to the Champions League. The alternative is Villa never win a trophy ever again, but at least you're free of the whistling torture.
Yeah, that's easy. I'll listen to an hour of Matt for sure. If his alternative is not winning a trophy, yeah, and it's a great tune as well.
So I interpret that as it's not an hour of whistling; it's just every hour. A bit like a cuckoo clock. Matt Kendrick pops out, whistles a tune for 30 seconds, and goes away. I actually quite enjoy that.
Oh, I read it as it is every hour, like
as
for
in
an hour every
the
day.
hour. Oh,
Like from. And it depends when it is as well. If you're talking 7 a.m., not 7 a.m., it's not that early. If you're talking 5 a.m., yeah, that's different. But then again, maybe you would just fall asleep to it, which is another strange thought.
I think you probably get just used to it, yeah.
And his whistling was okay. Like, it wasn't like ear piercing or anything. So, yeah, that band or the artist, The Mission and First Time, 2 songs they produced as well that were really good. So, as well as Helen Back, if you want to listen to it. Good tracks.
I like that we're now venturing into other culture, that we're getting music recommendations. Maybe we should start like a film club or something.
I don't watch films.
Good point, yeah. I forgot about that part. John, thank you for joining me as always. It's been a while since we recorded last. We've slotted back into each other's company seamlessly. Thanks to everyone who provided the questions for this week's show. Obviously, Villa haven't played a game since Bruges, so I understand that having some games to talk about would be quite useful. Villa return to action this Sunday, Mother's Day, to play Preston in the FA Cup. There'll be a post-match for that. Working backwards, there'll be a preview as well, and we'll get Matt Kendrick on to share his love of the FA Cup. He obviously bangs on about it a lot, so let's give him the floor to talk about this great competition. Plenty of content coming up this week, and then like John said earlier, there's midweek matches coming up for the next few weeks as well. So loads of content coming up on Claret and Blue. Thank you for watching along or listening to this episode, and we'll see you in a few days.